Are you ready, Ninja Babe? Ready to face your fears, to ignite your passions and break through your limitations? Are you ready to get out of your comfort zone and go after your dreams with unstoppable force? It's happening here on the Ninjababes podcast, the place where women spill it all about self-confidence, courage, and body image. This is where we show our strength. This is the sisterhood where girls gather to empower themselves and each other. Get ready to get rocked, because this is where you come to be encouraged and be transformed in order to live out your full potential. Be proud of yourself, Ninja Babe. Now let's get after it. Welcome to the Ninjababes podcast. Today I'm here with Jeri, and I have a very important question before we do anything else.
All right.
Do you remember many years ago, there was a time I thought that school was going to be canceled like for an eternity because Y2K was going to happen. And like
I do remember that.
20 years ago now. It's been 20 years.
I can't believe it's been 20 years. I remember standing out on the back porch of my mom's house, the house she still lives in. We banged pots and pans, and my parents didn't believe in like the computer shutting off or anything like that. But I remember my friends' parents did, and they were like hoarding food and stuff like that. And I just look back at it, and it's like this thing, Y2K, you know, and there's so many people alive now that weren't alive for that. And I mean, I was 10 at the time, so I'm 30 now.
Yeah. Oh my God, same.
And
10 and 30.
It's crazy. It's crazy that it's been 20 years and we're still here.
It's so wild.
Computers are still going.
Yeah, I kind of forgot that happened for a second, and then I was thinking about it. Wow, 20 years. And then I was like, wait a second. I remember like saving everything, like hard copies of stuff on my computer because like my parents did. Like we were not sure. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Isn't it funny? Like we thought like computers were just going to shut down because there's too many zeros. Whereas like now we have computers that like talk to us and tell us what to do. And they're always listening and waiting for you to tell them what to do. Like, if you showed us that 20 years ago.
Yeah, now the computers are like laughing at us. They're like, joke's on you.
Yeah, Siri's like, you idiot.
Maybe Y2K is going to actually happen, like, I don't know, in like 2021 or something. The computers are like still waiting. They're like holding off on us.
Too many twos and ones, I guess.
And what's really amusing to me right now is that I've never recorded with anyone with video, and so suddenly like I'm aware that Jeri can see all my hand motions that no one usually can see because it's just audio. But today we're recording with video, and it's really funny to me. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Sorry to throw you off by asking for FaceTime. I just feel like these things are so much easier if we're talking and just having a conversation and we can see each other. So true.
Absolutely. I'm just going to like keep giggling though for the first like 5 minutes until I get used to it. So, Jeri, can you tell us, how does the world know you? I know obviously you're part of Ninja Warrior, but when did we first meet you? What seasons? And yes, tell us.
So I guess the world, most people know me from American Ninja Warrior starting on season 7, and I've competed in seasons 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and hopefully season 12. I submitted an application, so we will see.
Yay. Where was your first city that you competed in?
Funny story. I competed in San Pedro in the special military episode. So I don't know that they actually ever would have picked me for the regular, for my regular region, because that year, I think they had it was in Dallas. So it would have been like really convenient because I lived in Dallas at the time. I was passed up. They'd finished filming that. So I was like, sure, I wasn't going to get picked. And then I got called and they were like, hey, we're doing a military special episode. It's in 2 weeks in San Pedro, which is like right outside of LA. Can you be there? And I was like, yeah. And at the time I was like studying for the bar. I just finished law school, was about to take the bar. So I took all my books and bar prep stuff with me out to San Pedro and gave it a shot.
That's so awesome. I love how TV is always like, hey, can you do this? Like right now, like stop your whole
right
life
now.
and come do this.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay.
When I first got involved with Ninja Warrior, which I guess was like 3 years ago now at this point, because my first season on the show was season 10. but I was involved like during season 9, I
Mhm.
always knew you as the redhead who wasn't Rachel Goldstein
That's so
because
funny.
because I live in New Jersey and Rachel's in New Jersey. And so I like knew who she was. And then I would like see pictures of like this other redhead. And I always like thought you were the same person for a little while.
That is
Cause
so funny.
it's
And I
like
have
wavy
curly
too.
wild hair too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like not to say that you're not like individual and beautiful and like wonderful, but I was always just like,
No,
there's
totally fine.
two, I was like, there's 2 redheads. Wait, what? Yeah. So I'm happy to like be chatting with you now.
No, this is awesome. And so was Rachel. So thank you.
Yeah. Yes. I just talked to Rachel today actually because we're both going through like shoulder rehab for very different
Oof.
reasons. But so like Rachel had a baby and
Mhm.
then I dislocated my shoulder in June. I don't know if you
Mm.
knew about that.
I
I
didn't.
dislocate Yeah, so I was testing in Vegas this past season. And so I was testing on stage 2 and I was like super pumped to be like getting to be on stage 2. And then kind of like it felt like out of nowhere I was doing like the first obstacle of stage 2. So it was just a sprint to the rope swing. But when I
Mhm.
jumped to the rope, it ripped out my shoulder
Oh
and
no.
I like tore my labrum and then ended up having
Oh.
surgery over the summer. So long story short, yeah, I've been doing
Oh man.
shoulder rehab really since it happened in June, but post surgery like since August.
Oh
So
my gosh.
but me and Rachel are like constantly like comparing notes of like how are you doing now? Like it's just so funny. Like it's not funny. It's so different. Like she's not rehabbing, but like re-strengthening after having a
Yeah.
baby. And like
Yeah.
her body has gone through a lot.
Yeah.
So she's like regaining all of that muscle and like learning how her body is different now and like all that
Mhm.
stuff. And like I'm learning the same thing, but like I didn't have a baby. I just like got a new arm. So
Hey, and you can relate with like probably 80% of the ninjas out there that
yeah.
have jacked up
I
their shoulders. And I feel
know.
like Rose Wetzel wrote the
Hmm.
book on how to come back after having a kid, Like I don't have
Yeah.
any kids, I don't know what it's like, but it looks like a challenge, to come back
Oh
after
yeah.
that, and Rose did it tenfold. So, and
Yeah.
I know Rachel will
Oh, absolutely.
for
I have
sure.
so much respect for like all of the moms, but especially like the moms who were ninjas and then they had a kid and then they're like, I'm coming back.
Yeah,
Like that's a lot and it's
it's
like really
insane.
cool to see. It's very inspiring to see.
Yeah.
And it's very comforting because I was just talking to Charity about this. Charity the Mermaid Ninja we
Yes.
had an episode a couple weeks ago and she was just sharing her heart about having kids in general and like she was explaining how she's like I'm always a very creative person. I was creative and passionate about my creativity and my art before I had kids and then I had kids and was determined to not lose that and to like still invest in myself and still
Mhm.
create on my own and she's doing that like amazingly. And so I look at these other moms who now have had a kid and they're like I'm not going to lose myself so to say like I
Mhm.
still want to be able to produce and like be myself 100%, but
Yeah.
I want to be a good mom and I want to take care of my kids and like, so it's just so interesting to me to like look at that balance.
Yeah,
So,
I can't even mad respect for the women, for
yeah.
the moms out there. I look at my schedule in my life and I just think, oh my god, I don't even know how. I don't know how I could do what you're talking about and like
Yeah.
still be me, juggle like the stuff I do now and have time to be like a
Yeah.
parent, no less a good one. So
What is the stuff you do now? Tell us more. What are the things that you do?
so I'm an attorney for the Army. So I'm an active duty officer in the Army. And in the JAG Corps, we kind of bounce around. So you'll hold one job for a year or two. And is that a biscotti you're eating? Oh, it looks amazing. I'm going to have one right after this. So we kind of bounce around to different jobs. And so, one day you'll be advising a commander on, strikes and things like that, to now I'm a criminal defense attorney, which is just a world different from anything I've done so far in the Army or outside the Army. And so this is my first job in the military justice. So I didn't do prosecution first, but at some point I will. Normally in the Army we do like prosecution for a bit of time, and then some people do defense for some time, or they just move on to the next area of law. So not only am I doing a new area of law that I've it's brand new to me, and you jump into it like you do anything else in the Army, just like full speed, drink from the fire hose, learn what you're doing and do it well. But I also up and moved to Alaska. So I was stationed at Fort Carson in Colorado, and now I'm stationed at J Bear in Alaska. So that's a world different too.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. Wow, that's like so interesting, and it's stuff that I don't think about every day, but like your world is like you are in your world. Like I always respect people whose jobs like it's like everywhere, like it's they're so submerged in everything they do, and that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's when I go and I do ninja, it's like a completely different world,
Hmm.
because it's, realistically speaking, it's a few minutes of my year, spent on the course. And
Yeah.
then if I'm lucky, then I get to, spend a couple days with friends while doing filming and things like that. But in the big picture, it's like the whole rest of the year, other than those few days, are I'm, an officer in the Army JAG Corps, and I
Hmm.
am full time, busy as you can imagine. At this point, defending soldiers in our
Wow.
criminal system. So
Wow.
yeah, and there's no
That's really
ninja
cool.
gyms up here, so
Right.
um, that's made it even harder for me to kind of blend my worlds. And in Colorado is a lot easier. There's ninja gyms.
Right.
There's ninjas around.
Yeah.
Out here, Nick is 6 hours away, so we climb
I know. I was
together.
like, oh, Alaska, you must be neighbors. No, it's pretty
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, it's like Alaska's like half the size of the US, of the lower 48. And Nick is like in a remote village 6 hours away. Luckily, he visits Anchorage pretty often, so we climb together and train together every time he's in town. But, there's no ninja gym. And I'm going to go give his like Arctic Ninja Gym a try in a few days. I'm going to travel out there and go give it a shot, go ice fishing, go play around. So, but yeah,
That's so
that's
fun.
kind of what I'm up to now.
That's so cool. So when you are trying to train home now, like do you go to a regular gym and try to modify and like make up stuff, or do you have things at home?
So I bought another house, and this one is a complete remodel. I know we're on FaceTime, so like, but I can't leave the computer because I'm attached. But or else I would show you. Like, I'm doing like a complete remodel on this house, and one of the first things I put up was hangboards and like finger stuff, so that I can swing and hang around because it's a split level. So there's
Oh,
like
okay.
this dead space that you can jump from one level and hang kind of from the ceiling of the top level. So I've got that, which is really just grip strength, and then the
Hmm.
climbing gym. So aside from that, I really miss being able to get good swinging and body awareness, like transfers and
Yeah.
agility wise. I mean, everything's ice. So I'll like go on runs here, and most of it's just like my stabilization muscles, like trying to keep me from eating it every other step.
That's scary.
But like, it's nothing like being able to go to a gym and like do rolling logs and do, things that we expect to see, the kind of returning obstacles from the show, things like that. Every time I start to get nervous about this season, this upcoming season, I'm like, you know what? Last season was my best season ever. And I came like straight from Afghanistan where I had very little training. And, maybe that says something. So I'm just going to keep doing what I can here
Yeah.
and hope it transfers to the course.
No, definitely. I think especially when you're at your point where you've done ninja before and it's not like you did it once and you were good at it and like, oh, lucky. Like you've done ninja for years, and it's like I do think a lot of that muscle memory and just your own like mental spacing of like body awareness and like understanding how things are supposed to feel, I think that kicks in a lot for you. And maybe even last season, if you're coming in being like, well, whatever happens happens, and just with like that no pressure mindset, like
Hmm.
those instincts I think just kick in so well.
Yeah, last year I definitely felt like I mean, I always get nauseous right when I'm going to compete and I'm standing on the stairs back there. And like any competitor who hears this, they know what I'm talking about because right before you come on to where the cameras can see you, you're standing there right behind those stairs, that starting, platform. And they're like, okay, wait 1 second, and they've got their hands up and they're like, you're just waiting for them to go, okay, walk up. And you're like, no, don't say it. Like, I'm always like, why do I do this? Like, I feel so sick right now, and it goes away like as soon as I'm on the course. But,
Hmm.
aside from that, like the days leading up to it, I wasn't nervous like I normally am because I felt very much like, whatever happens, happens. Like, I worked out a lot over there. It just was very like kind of meathead workouts, like I didn't have anything to like train
Yeah.
ninja on. But yeah, so I was like, no pressure. And it ended up being my best season. And I think it's really impacted how I see myself in being able to perform, like, cause I had never done that well. I never made it to the eighth obstacle and I felt really good on the eighth obstacle. And so now I'm kind of like, okay, I
Hmm.
can do it. I can do that. And I can go much further than I have in the past. I think a lot of my failures in the past now I realize were in large part mental because I didn't think I could.
Yeah.
And now I've seen it
Yeah.
and I felt good and I'm like, shoot, I could have gone farther. So hopefully
Yeah.
I do that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, now it's like setting you up because I think so much of confidence even is just like proving to yourself that you can.
Hmm.
And like you have those experiences and you sort of like store them away and you're like, I did that, so I think I could do it again, or I think I could do
Hmm.
better. Whether it's ninja or just like life, I think so much of confidence is just that like
Yeah.
proving to yourself skill.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
being a returning competitor, what do you think is the best way to not set yourself up for failure as far as like feeling pressure of like, oh, I did this last year and now I have to do this?
You know, it's like, oh, I like gotta knock on wood. I'm like scared to even say this and put it out in the atmosphere. But every single season, I've been up, what, since 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've been on 5 seasons, and every season I've done better than the previous
Hmm.
one. And I think in large part, I really do when I'm like walking up to the course, when I'm measuring out like what I think of each obstacle, my approach and all that, I'm not thinking at all about the year before at all. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, how can I get past this one? How can I get past this one? And I
Yeah.
think it's a combination of different obstacles. There's some obstacles I've gone out on that I'm like, please don't bring that back because I don't know that I could get past it today. Like, I don't know that any bit of training is going to get me past some of the balancing obstacles that I have gone out on the past and am still terrified of. So a mix of just different obstacles, and then I've gotten stronger, and yeah, learn stuff about body awareness when it comes to agility obstacles and things like that. But yeah, as a returning competitor, keeping that pressure down, I wish I could say I had the answer. I really just try to look at each obstacle separately. I mean, they say they only bring back 30% every year. So there's always the chance that, um,
Hmm.
you know, you'll be one of the competitors that doesn't come back the next year if you don't perform well.
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of something that I think, like, I don't think about that until I'm making my video. And I'm like, oh man, I wonder if they're going to take me back. But yeah, when I'm on the course, I just try to think like, I always have the goal, finish qualifiers. And then, I personally want to be, it was in the top 15 to qualify for Vegas and now the top 12. Literally, those are my repeat goals every year. Yet to do that. But yeah, so the first night, I'm always thinking, hit the buzzer, like complete this, each one obstacle at a time. And then the second night, it's like make it further than you did the night before.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I mean, it makes sense. I mean,
right? Yeah. It's
yeah.
like, and then, being in the top 15, that was like in my video last year, like in my application video, I want to be in the top 15. And then I was 13th all around. Like I was
Oh,
in the top 15 and I was so proud. And, the rules changed and they took the top 12. So like, it didn't matter, but
oh
it was
man.
like the biggest.
Oh wow. I didn't realize that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Oh
was
wow.
like Grant ended up 12th and we fell in the exact same spot. I just was slower.
Oh,
And so it was one of those, but for me, that was huge because I was thinking like, yeah, that's my goal. And I say it every year, but like realistically, did I think I was good enough to be in the top 15 all around?
Oh yeah.
I'd be lying if I said, oh yeah, I'm good enough to, I really did question that. And
Mm-hmm.
then to get in the top 15, if it had been under the rules that always has been, like I would have qualified on my own no matter what, and that did a lot for me when it came to confidence and like kind of, okay, this is kind of where I stand among, among my friends and my competition,
Yeah.
um, so, and that also like, it really worked out because it was the best I've ever done. And then I also then was, if I'd made it to Vegas, I would not have been allowed to, or I wouldn't have been able to go to airborne school. So it worked out
Oh.
just right.
Wow, that worked
So,
out.
yeah.
Well, congratulations though. Like that's 13. Like that is a huge accomplishment, and that's awesome. Like that just makes my heart feel warm because it's like that's so good, and like to hear you say like I had this goal and then like you actually did it. Like that's such a prize like for yourself, even if you didn't go to Vegas. Like
Yeah.
that's
No,
tough,
it
but
really,
yeah.
it was. And people were, reaching out to me a lot and saying a lot about how these rules are bad and, more women should be going and this and that. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, like, I don't want that. I want to qualify based on how I do on the course. And I am
Hmm.
so proud of how I did on the course.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I knew the top 12 moved on because I read the new rules and they tell you, and I was
Hmm.
13th. And so like,
Yeah.
I'm extremely proud of that. And I think that next time I just got to be top 12. That's what it comes down to. So
There you go. You heard it, folks. In top 12. Yeah. So then tell me about your, what did you get to go to then since you didn't go to Vegas?
I was in the midst of, so I already knew, okay, I'll get back from Afghanistan. I'll have time to compete on the show. And then I'll have just like 3 weeks to hurry up, get everything packed and move from Colorado to Alaska. And I got the opportunity to go to airborne school, which is 3 weeks long, but I could only go, if I didn't make it to Vegas. I was going to have to pick if I made it to Vegas. And I really didn't want to do that. It's, a lot of people want to go to these extra schools and things like that and either don't get support from their leadership or it just never fits in their schedule. Like the fact that I was getting the opportunity to do it was huge. Somebody has to pay for it and the unit I was leaving was willing to. So just everything was lining up and it just happened to fall at the same time as Vegas. So I was like, oh no. And so when I was on the course, it was just like, ignore that. Like, do the best you can so that you are proud of what you do and then figure it out afterward. Who knows, may not
Yeah.
even qualify either way. So I just did the best I could. So in no way am I saying I like threw it, so that I wouldn't go. Not in any way. I did the best I could and I just made a mistake. But yeah, afterward, when I found out I wasn't going, I was like, okay, now there's no choice for me. And that was a huge relief because it meant I got to go to airborne school. So
Yeah.
immediately after competing, I came back and I cleared the base and like it's a 10-day process and I did it in less than a day. And then immediately flew out to Fort Benning in Georgia, did 3 weeks of airborne school, flew back, and I had one day, I packed up everything else and I jumped in a moving van and moved to Alaska.
What an adventure.
It was
it was a whirlwind.
a whirlwind. I don't even just thinking back on it, I get this feeling of exhaustion that I felt then,
No.
It was one of those things that I just couldn't wait for it to, I was like, I know I'm going to get through all this.
Yeah.
I just can't wait for it to be over and look back, because it was just so stressful.
Yeah. So in airborne school, like I actually don't know. Like, do you learn how to fly? Like, what is it?
So that airborne school is where you jump out of planes under a parachute.
Oh,
so
got you.
Okay. No, it's all good. So in I think it was last season that they covered air assault. which
Okay.
is where you're rappelling out of helicopters. And so I'd gone
Got
to
it.
air assault school before. Like I said, I was super lucky, had an awesome, command that supported me going to these schools. So I've been very lucky to get to go to multiple ones. So this one is, instead of rappelling out of helicopters, is jumping out of planes.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, it is like a world different from like what I had done before. I was a licensed skydiver on the civilian side
Okay.
before I got in the Army, and I haven't jumped in years. But oh my gosh, it is. There's not one thing in common with
Wow.
what we do in the Army. It was like I almost wish I didn't have that background because, like you want to just forget everything you know before
Right.
and just take in what they teach you. Just do what they tell you to do and not act like you
Yeah.
know anything, because what you know doesn't transfer.
Huh.
And so, like, where I was used to jumping out at 14,000 feet and pulling my own chute and having control and all that, um, this was like you're just like running right behind the person in front of you and just shoot, you're out the door. You're at 1,200 feet. And your chute gets pulled by a static line, and then next thing you know, it's like you hit the ground like less than, I'd say, like 15 to 20 seconds ish.
Wow.
I mean, like, it is
That's
all so
fast.
fast. Yeah. Whereas I'm so used to this, like, over a minute of free fall. And then once I pull my chute, I've got 5 to 10 minutes, depending on, how warm it
Oh
is
wow.
out. So, like, world of difference.
Yeah, that sounds like
Yeah.
it. One sounds like la la la, and the other one's like
Yeah.
ah.
Yeah, and then like, yeah, on the civilian side, I like stood up every landing nice and soft, and then in the Army, it's like no, like every land is like a flop on the ground, and it's
Oh
just like
gosh.
a world of difference. All safe though, like no
Yeah.
injuries. It was all good. I just it was different. Is what I can say about that.
Wow, how exciting. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Do you feel like what you do in the army like somehow translates into ninja? Maybe not physically, or maybe yes physically, but like maybe mentally? I don't know. What do you think?
You know, I kind of think it goes the other way. Like, I think
Mm,
ninja translates
yeah.
into my army career because, for one, most lawyers don't have to take like fitness tests regularly. Like if I were in the civilian side, it wouldn't freaking matter, and I know
Mhm.
that if you just walked up to any random law firm and said, okay, give me all of your lawyers outside right now, we're going to do a fitness test, your results would be very different than if you walked into, the office of the staff judge advocate and tested all the lawyers, because that's part of our job, and so the Army is switching away from a PT test that has been in place for who knows how long. Like, I won't even try to guess right now, but a long time, where there's been a separate men and women standard, and they're very, very different. So it's always been my goal, and I do successfully get a maximum score on the men's scale for my age. So it's like, okay, if I'm the same age and everything, but a man, like, what am I expected to be able to do? And then, I mean, there's everything. It's a point system, so there's passing, and then there's a lot in between passing and the maximum. And I always try to max out the men's scale. But we're switching to a new test, and that will be the new standard. And it's just one standard for men and women for different
That's
ages. And I
cool.
love that.
Yeah.
But to go back to your question, Ninja has made me a different kind of strong than I was before. Like, I mean, my upper body strength is on a whole different level than it would be if I didn't have Ninja. And that is something that a lot of women struggle with, especially if they're starting later in life. If you were an athlete when you were younger, or you weren't, and then you try to like jump into it. So you stopped for years in between, life got in the way, whatever, and then you jump in. That's something that a lot of women really struggle with. And in large part, I think a lot of women get very down on themselves because of where they stand, can't do a pull up or something like that. That's not unheard of. That's really normal. A lot of adults,
Oh
men
yeah.
or women, can't do a dead hang pull up.
Mhm.
But you can absolutely get there. So coming into the Army, I was already doing ninja stuff. So I got in the Army. Let's see, I commissioned in May of 16. I had already competed on season 7 and on Team Ninja Warrior.
Okay.
So I was already kind of in that. I was already training that way. I already had my strength in those areas was already, kind of starting to build. And so it definitely made me stand out against my peers. And I mean, not in a way that's like competitive, just like that it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we're doing all the same things. And when we're put to the test, the numbers speak for themselves. And so in that hasn't stopped, from the beginning. It's like I get picked for all kinds of random, if there's a competition where there's obstacle courses or things like that, I'll be on the team. I'll end up being on the team. Which is
Cool.
awesome. I like
Yeah.
getting paid. I'm an attorney, but I'm getting paid to go do obstacle courses and things like that. Like I love it. I
That's cool.
absolutely love it, and I love you know, teaching other people too. Like a lot of women are kind of standoffish about learning things like if they don't know how to climb a rope. And they're like, well, I mean, that's not part of the test. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, everybody in the Army climbs ropes all the time and, does pull ups
Yeah.
and things like that. That's not part of our test. So, like, that's
Wow.
not true. And plenty of people can't climb a rope. And so, that's just an example I think of because it's something that over time, it's probably been the most common thing that people have come up to me and been like, "Hey, if you ever have the time, do you mind teaching me?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I love teaching. Like it's kind of my chance to just go, okay, turn, Captain D'Aurelio off and just be, Team Jerry from Ninja and teach, and it's fun and I love it. And there's a technique to everything, and people, if they had the technique, can do so much. But if they don't have it because they don't ask, because they're embarrassed, things like that, it just keeps them from, really seeing what they can do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I would say. That's a really long answer that trailed way off, but that's how I would say ninja
No, I
impacts me at my work.
no, that's a great answer. I love the tangent. And I love that you mentioned about the test because I'm sure it's been like a big thing with UNX, having separate courses for men and women in the majors. And I had interviewed both Jesse Lebrecht and Jesse Graff. There was a UNX episode a couple of weeks ago where basically like Jess Lebrecht explained her whole reasoning for being such a huge advocate for wanting separate courses. It was just really interesting to hear her explain it because I
Uh-huh.
respect her. Like I respect her opinion. And if you had just like, if I had just read a blank statement that was like, there's going to be separate courses, I would have been like, what? But then because Lebrecht is the one explaining it to me, I was like,
Uh-huh.
wait, tell me more. What do you mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's just been so interesting to like talk to them. And then like, there's so many, women within the community, some who are upset by it and some who are in favor of it. And it's just, I don't know what I think yet, to be honest, because I see good components of being on the same course where we're continuing to show that like there's no difference, like why should we be on separate courses? But
Hmm.
then at the same time, the argument of if they're separate but different, like not just like, oh, the easier women's version, I'm making air quotes, but like actually different courses with different types of skill sets, like UNX is trying to make it that way.
Hmm.
I can sort of see how they're trying to allow more of a platform for women to shine and like show their skill in a different way where they can complete the courses because it's, again, air quotes, different. But I understand why that's very frustrating for a lot lot of people. So we don't have to get into the whole thing, but
No, I'm
I
curious now
really,
to listen to both of those because I just found out that there's like a separate
oh
women's course, and so
yeah.
I definitely want to listen to both of their both the reasoning behind it and kind of yeah. I mean, this is not a new thing that like how do these women in Ninja Warrior, how do they feel about the rules that just keep changing? It wasn't that long ago
Mhm.
that they
Right,
instituted the rule, top two from each city and things like that.
right.
And so, I mean, there was even a day where Anthony Storm, we were in Vegas, and he's one of the executive producers, and he was in a room with just like let's see, it was like me, Barclay, I think Barclay, Maggie, both Jessies, Michelle Werke, um, But I mean, just getting the opinion of, you know, this group of women on the show, and there, I mean, obviously there's other women competitors and they might have been there. It was
Mhm.
like some of us happened to be together in a room, and I can't remember what spurred it, but we were pissed about something. Actually, it was having a separate skills, for just women. Remember when
Oh,
they
okay.
did the skills challenge,
Yeah.
and we were all angry that they weren't letting us play on like the super salmon ladder and like have us doing women on the same challenges, and so I think it speaks worlds about the show and really the team of producers that Anthony Storm was like, let's meet and talk about this, and it dovetailed into a bunch of different topics, but given the conversations about things like that and how women on the same courses, same obstacles, everything down to the backgrounds that are portrayed on the show with the women versus the men, we talked about all of it. So with that background, I'm very curious to hear these interviews about having a separate women's course for
Yeah.
UNX. But yeah, since I'm ignorant on the topic, I haven't seen any, and I unfortunately haven't gotten to travel down to the lower 48 yet to compete.
Okay.
I'm super supportive of UNX. Those are all my friends, running it. And I love it. I love what they're doing. And hopefully I get to make it to one before it's over.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I'm definitely a huge supporter of UNX as well. I mean, I've been talking a lot with Kim, Ron, and everyone who's been involved with it, and just like talking about everything, but also having both Jessies on the podcast was just, like I said, like very enlightening to like hear a different perspective that I didn't really expect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to that episode in the podcast, it's really like probably halfway through the episode that we really get into like that topic specifically. But yeah, then once the first majors aired and then the second one's like being able to see the way the courses go, it's kind of like everybody starts on the same course. And I think in the major one, it was like the first 5 obstacles were the same, and then it branched out. So watching it as a viewer, it was like there was some element of like, oh, it's more interesting because I'm getting to watch a different course now, and it wasn't the exact same thing, and it wasn't like everyone was falling in the exact same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there were elements of like it being more entertaining, but then if I thought about it like, oh, but what if A&W decided that they wanted to do something like this? That really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I definitely have mixed feelings, but I want more people to talk about it. Like I want there to be more conversation of being able to like understand the pros and cons, and like a lot of women have brought up like, what will this do to the future? Like are we sending a negative message to like younger girls who are watching UNX now and they're like, oh well, now it really should be different. Like I don't know, are we like sending mixed signals like to the world? It's
Yeah.
just it's a good conversation to keep having, I think, until we can really like decide on something, because ninja's so different in different avenues of leagues and different parts of the country or like the world. It's different. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you can see just in like, NNL is just been around longer. It's more established. Like you can see, we've had the opportunity to see a lot more NNL courses over the years. And they go to pretty far lengths to try to make them, equal in challenge and things like that. As they'll travel around to the gym beforehand, see what the planned courses and things like that, but it doesn't, like you just said, like it's just different all over the place. Like you're not going to have courses that are really like equal, they're different obstacles, they're just, it's true. And then you've got people training from different places, so they've been exposed to different stuff. And I know sometimes it's like, oh man, I wish I had that course. Like, wow, that plays to my strengths,
Yeah.
or if I show up to a course and I'm like, holy, that's everything I'm bad at. Like, like,
Yeah.
that stuff happens. But when it comes to, I guess a comparison I really can make that with like the Army test, when you're talking about like, oh, what it sent, what messages it sends and things like that. And people are like, why do, there's so much when it comes to, opinions about this new test. If you can imagine that, for one, it's changing something in the Army, which doesn't happen, like, and people still think
Yeah.
that it's not going to go through, it's past like all of these things. And they're like, there's no chance it'll fail at the last second, whatever. To me, I'm like, I'm training for it so that it's, when it's the test, then I can take it.
Yeah.
But as somebody who was an advocate for getting one standard for men and women from the start, not that anybody asked me my opinion because it was all way underway before I got in, but when people ask me my opinion, I feel strongly about it because so a maximum score was 300 on the old scale. And if I was, asked, so, okay, what's my PD score? 300 is the answer. And on the women's scale, it meant something so different than on the men's scale. It was like, okay, I mean, people, you would get that response from people. Oh, okay, well, that doesn't mean anything, like this kind of attitude about it. So I'd always have to be like, listen, like, and clarify, like, I got a 300 on your scale too. Like, so
Wow.
should it, like, but like just the fact that it's like a solid number. We're saying 300, it should hold some kind of like weight to it. And it meant such different things. Well, how old are you? Because if you were a lot older, it was a lot easier. I mean, it just was, you could see on this whole scale. And it's for obvious reasons, people are in the Army for 30, years. Sometimes it's like, how long do we really expect them to be able to do all this stuff? You break your body, but you still got to be able to do this. And so I understand the reasons for having a whole bunch of different scales, but I support there being one for, for the reasons I've given. I think that, for it to have that, for that number to have a purpose, like it's got to be set in something. And, us all having one test, I like that. Even though this one I won't max out, like, and people are like, well, doesn't that bother you? I'm like, no. To me, if I can just max out the hardest scale without training for it, then no, I would by far pick one that I know I will never max out. That's me saying, like, I can train for it, and that's hard. Like, I'm not somebody who takes failure like easily, but I know that there's not going to be a day that I'm like, let's see, I would have to run, I think it's an 11-minute 2-mile, and also do a 270-pound deadlift. I think it's either, they kept changing at the beginning. I don't know which one they came down on, but it's like 270 or 320, one of those two. A lot more than I deadlift.
Oh, wow.
And I don't run 11 2-miles. So will I pass it? Absolutely. Will I max it? I won't. But that gives me something to work on. And that gives men and women something to work on, and then our scores mean something, like, to everybody. Right. It just falls on this, it just is.
And then when you tell a guy what your score was and it was better than theirs, it'll actually be like, oh, well, respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, okay, well, now, it puts everybody on the same page. And so I like that. I haven't decided how I feel about the UNX stuff. I haven't, thrown around that mental game enough, so I've got to see the reasoning behind it. I absolutely love and respect everybody you've mentioned, so I'm curious to see what they think about it or the reasoning behind it.
Next, I want to just give a huge thank you to Sleep Ovation. I've slept on the bed for over a year now as well, and I gotta say, I love it just as much as I did week one. This mattress has a unique technology. It's made up of 700 individual moving pieces. That's why it's got the nickname 700 Tiny Mattresses in One. What's special about this mattress is the fact that underneath your mattress cover, you have these individual squares of cushion attached to individual springs, so your bed feels airy and light while producing a cool to the touch type of feel so that you sleep cool. You don't wake up sweating in the middle of the night, and it's just a cloud-like, wonderful, heavenly experience. Right now, you can use code Ninjababes for 28% off your order. So head on over to sleepovation.com or look at the links in the show notes below. A lot of the young girls that are training ninja now are automatically, like, getting stuff that I'm like, what? Like, it took me a year to get that, or like whatever. And it's just so impressive and like so cool. But it's even what you mentioned earlier, like some women who are in their like hitting 30 or like whatever age it is. I don't know what number to put on it, but like the women who are starting athletics later in life and then like struggling to build up her body strength, yada yada. Like the girls who are learning pull-ups at a young age, they're just able to grow that strength in such a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes me think like, yeah, why should we change the rules with the men and the women? Because these girls are going to have such an easier time being right on par with where the guys are at.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a different way to look at it too, that makes me feel hesitant about making them do a separate course. I'd almost rather like everyone under 18, like you get the same course. And
Yeah.
then I don't know, like I don't know what the answer is, but I think there's like so many different aspects of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many different aspects of it, like, and that's why there, to me, there's not a right answer.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to kids, like I've done some of the, not nearly as many as some of the other ninjas that are able to fit it into their schedule, but I've done some of the camps. I was lucky to
Uh-huh.
do one of the ones out in Chicago, and it was a blast. And you just see kids when they're at this age where these girls are like just fearless, and they're so
Mhm.
easy to coach. And at that
Yeah.
time, like nobody's hit puberty, and they're all just like these little light, evenly distributed little balls of muscle, and they're like, the boys are kind of like, I can do this. Look, I can do this. And these little girls are like, oh, do it that way. Boom. And they like complete the obstacles. Like, I mean, it's awesome. I had
Mhm.
never, I don't work in a ninja gym. And so I just felt like I didn't really get exposed to it until I did that Ultimate Ninjas camp. And I was like blown away by how the little girls were like whooping up. It was like so
Yeah.
impressive. And I was going, man, what things are changing, And I think it's like at that time, one, they're not impacted by this, idea of like what a girl can do. Um,
Right. Hmm.
they're just doing it. And I
Yeah.
remember, do you remember seeing that commercial? I'm trying to remember
The
who
Dove soap commercial.
is it, where it's like, where they go, run like a girl. And they ask
Yes.
like, okay, I think about that commercial all
So
the
do I.
time. I was like, what a freaking amazing commercial. Cause it's like,
Yeah.
it just shows it. These little girls, what it means to be a girl is this strong figure, and they're acting it out for whoever's listening, if anybody's listening. They're acting it out. You see them just doing this confident, strong run.
Yeah.
And then when they ask these older girls, run like a girl, and to them, what that means is they pull their arms in like T-Rex arms and kind of flop them around like it's this funny little kind of like weak persona, and it's like, wow, what, that's
Yes.
sad. And like, it's funny, I'm sitting here talking about this Dove commercial. Obviously they did a good job.
I mean, yeah, because I think about that commercial all the time too. I
it's
really do.
it's amazing. And then I see with these little girls and I'm like, stay like that,
Yeah.
if there's anything I can do, both, with career stuff, and physical stuff, anything across the board. If there's anything I can do to motivate young females to stick with that and keep pushing it, push the boundaries of what people think women can do, then I'm all for it. I'll do it, Um, you're saying like doing it different for kids. It's like I understand the differences in, adult women's bodies and adult males bodies versus the comparison as kids,
Hmm.
before puberty. But there are still things that are easier for women or easier for lighter people, who in general are the women, because we're smaller,
Yeah.
obviously not across the board, but on average, even our tall women in the sport are still, not tall compared to the men in the sport. But things that spin less with lighter weight, and things that, like the spider wall and things like that require you to open your hips. And that's something that's easier for women. And
Right.
so, I, in general, would rather be on the same course that has things that are, like the show tries to do, things that challenge everyone. It's hard to do, to make a course that's hard for all these different shapes and sizes. I understand that, but to me, it's like people that I consider to be much just better than me went out in Cincinnati last year earlier than I did. How to, men that are way better than me did not make it as far, and that is for a lot of different reasons, but it says something. It does not just come down to sex, and so that's one of those things that I'd rather it be all in the same, but I'm so open to listen to what Jesse and others have to say about this and see if I can be persuaded.
Yeah, I hear you. So this is actually going to be the first episode of 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Congratulations.
Oh, awesome.
I don't know. I don't know.
I hope I'm giving you good content to work with.
No, definitely. Absolutely. Do you like New Year stuff, or are you kind of like, I hate New Year's resolutions, or like, are you into the new year?
I get excited, I guess, because so much of my life has changed in the last year, that I kind of get excited. Okay, I wonder what this year is going to have to, going to bring.
Okay.
I don't have like brand new, I want to do this differently this
Yeah,
year, but there's a song by the Bleachers, I want to get better. And like, I totally end up like, since I found that song, I listen to that around New Year's. I'm just like, hey, what can I do to just get better, make life
yeah,
better for myself. And whether that means, physically, mentally, something to change in my life, I really do try to do those things just as I realize them.
yeah,
But, and not link it to, a day on the calendar that's going to come
yeah,
whether or not I do anything differently.
yeah.
But it does, I think, no matter what, every time people ask you, what's your New Year's resolution? It still makes you reflect whether or not you're somebody who does that or believes in it or whatever. It makes you reflect on things and, reflect on what's changed in the last year. And that's probably where I get my like, oh, wow, like a lot has changed. And if it's not for the better, what do I need to do to make it
Yeah,
better?
right.
So,
If you had to give somebody advice based on what you learned in 2019, what would it be?
ooh, ooh, oh, let's see. Oh, I learned so much in 2019 that, oh man, it sounds so cliche, because it's like
It's
a
all good.
duh, but it's like, so when I turned 30 in 2019, in August of 2019. And yeah,
Happy
like,
birthday.
thank you.
I turned 30 in September, so
Oh, nice. There's a good number of us that are all like just turned it in. Like
yeah,
Megan is within a month of me, and Olivia's within a month of me. It's like, you know,
that's cool.
but that's one of those things where I was kind of like, and not because of my age that I like, oh, I need to change all these things. It was very much like, oh, happened to be going on. But I'd say like, it's not, you don't have to settle. Like, and I mean that both with what you're doing, with jobs, with relationships, I think we feel obligated to stay with things because it's like the smart thing to do. And that's what society tells us. You're in this stable, comfortable place. And whether that's like financially, with a job that's maybe like, meh, okay, in a relationship that you've been in for a very long time, and it's just easy and it's not bad, but it's not, you're just like, okay, it's okay. It's not anything like when you hear about, terrible relationships. So you just stay.
Mhm.
And I think that it takes something big happening and kind of making one of those decisions for you for people to really realize like, holy crap, I'm happy that happened. Like it seemed horrible when it happened, but it happened and it forced me into change. And there was way better out there. And I think 2019 taught me that you shouldn't wait for something else to force it. Like if you do a kind of self analysis and you go, things are okay. Uh, I'd be happier though if, like, really do it. Take the chance. I'm really happy right now. And I look back and I go, people are like, oh, you're 30, you're getting old. And I'm like, oh man, I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life. And yeah, I would take 30 over 20 any day.
Yeah, honestly. It's so true though. But I love everything that you shared because I think that's really valid, good advice. And yeah, I feel like now being 30, it's like I have all that wisdom and like things that I learned in my 20s that now I can like really apply well.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing, like 30 kind of hit me and I was like, I don't feel 30. Like I
Yeah.
definitely still feel like 24 or
So
something.
yeah, that's
And
exactly. I'm
so,
like 23, 24, except
yeah,
I have money and like
yeah,
a profession
exactly.
and all that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think this year too for me was 2019 was really hard for me in a lot of ways just because it started off the like New Year's Day, I broke my ankle at a ninja gym and then
Oh man.
rehabbed really hard and then was so happy I made it. I rehabbed in time to make it back onto A&W, which was like great. I competed. I made it to city finals. Like it was good. And then I went to Vegas and I was testing in Vegas and then I dislocated my shoulder. So I like haven't done ninja since June.
Oh man.
So it was just hard. It was just a really like mentally challenging and like physically challenging year.
Hmm.
But it's like you said too, it's just like anything that's unexpected that happens, it maybe sucks in the moment, but then you look back and like what did I learn from it? And just like the whole process of like really having to be patient, like really having to like take it a day at a time and like have grace for myself. Like I can't be upset at myself for my shoulder popping out and then like tearing, needing surgery. Like being upset at all of that is not going to make it better. Like
Yeah.
having to just be like, okay, like here I am. Like I can hardly lift my arm. Great. Like gotta just take it like one day at a time. And it's been really challenging, but it's really taught me so much about being like grateful for everything that I do have
Hmm.
and like looking forward to the next time I can do a pull up. Like I'm almost there. I'm doing like assisted pull ups now. Like just like looking forward to like every little thing that I cherish.
Yeah.
And now in 2020, I'm just like so looking forward to like everything that this year has to hold. And I'm so grateful for where I am now. And it just like, I don't know. It's just gonna be a good year just because
Yeah.
I healed, like my shoulder is healed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
So
you
like,
have that as your backdrop. It's
yeah,
like, well, I mean, the whole time you can be like, I mean, not that it's good to just be like, well, it could be worse, it could be, whatever.
right,
But I mean, part of that is what you learn. Like you said, like you get to come back from it and you will learn so much about yourself that you wouldn't know if that hadn't, happened. And a lot of times you'll come back stronger because you'll
yeah,
never have had to work that hard,
right.
as
So
you will
true.
coming back.
Yeah,
Last Christmas and New Year's, I was in Afghanistan, and those gave me a whole different respect for like what I have, and not that I wasn't grateful before, but I really didn't put much thought into Christmas and New Year's, whatever it's holiday seasons. Oh, I like the shorter work hours and things like that. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't, but being in Afghanistan and coming like for all the it didn't feel like the holidays, and I thought about it and I was like, I will every, holiday season after this, I'll really take it in a different way. But yeah, 2019, it's like if I just thought about, I mean, so I was, deployed for a portion of it. I went through a divorce. Left everything I had in Colorado, and I don't see it as a negative year at all. I see it as like the biggest year of learning for me.
yeah.
Like I said, I turned 30. I am the happiest I've ever been in my whole life right now. And so cheers to 2020. Let's see what it has
Cheers to
for
2020.
us.
I love it. It's so good. Thank you so much for being on the
Yeah.
episode today. Like I'm really excited. I'm really excited to share this episode. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Um, so I don't really use my Facebook. I keep it very private. But
Okay.
Instagram is what I use the most. I've been really lacking on that. I need to get on it. Life's been crazy. But on Instagram, my handle is Jeri Burr. It's kind of like Jerry Bear, except that was taken. It's JeriBerr. Yeah, and that's kind of where you can get the most up to date weird things that I'm doing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Look forward to
Thank you for having
definitely
me.
seeing. Yeah.
Be strong, be you, be a ninja babe.